Welcome to the Peggy Smedley Show, your voice for our connected world, with your host, Peggy Smedley.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to today's edition of the Peggy Smedley Show. I'm your host, Peggy Smedley. $700. What would you do with an extra $700? Now, that's the question I'm going to ask you. Because back in 2021, the ASCE, most of you know that is the American Society of Civil Engineers, did a study. Now, here's what's interesting. The Failure to Act study found that the infrastructure costs Americans $3,300 annually. Now, that's the number. With some progress in 2021 and 2022, that number has already reduced to $2,700. Now, think about that for a second. If we could continue to act, that number could decrease even further to $2,000 annually between 2024 and 2043. So the question remains, this is what I want you all to think about. What would you all do with an extra $700 a year? And that's, again, what I want you to think about. In the next 10 years, continuing investments will protect U.S. industries from losing more than $1 trillion in gross output. I can't even believe that when I think about these numbers, $1 trillion. So this kind of values, and they translate into household and employment benefits nationwide. So as Darren Olson, I'm going to read this for you, the chair of ASCE's Committee on America's Infrastructure says, infrastructure is an issue that impacts every American and is crucial to our overall economy. Now, I'm going to break this brand new infrastructure report card here. I'm going to break it down here on the show for the first segment. And I want you all to stick around for this conversation because I really think it's very important for us all to talk about it. And what I love about it, really, when I think about the infrastructure report card, I think it's interesting for us to understand what the impact on inflation on the Infrastructure Investment and on Jobs Act means, and how it'll actually impact how we will look at to find the talent to work in construction, and what I think overall, what will get us back to an A-plus score in the infrastructure report card. We've never had that grade. So what does it mean? And I think we really need to think about what all of these grades mean when we look at how our infrastructure is. So we're going to talk all about that here on the show. And I think it's really important because I think we have to understand what infrastructure really is. So really, let's get started. First, I want to start with kind of maybe talking about maybe a history lesson. So for those of you who might not know what the infrastructure is, the concept of a report card is kind of to grade the nation's infrastructure and how it actually came about. And it originated in 1998 with the National Council on Public Works Improvement Report. Now, a decade later, when the federal government indicated they would not be updating the report, the ASCE used the approach and the methodology, which I think is really great because the ASCE published its first report card on the Americans' infrastructure in 1998. So the ASCE report card, their first report card, is released every 4 years. So if you think about it, the new reports, and if we look at it every 4 years, came out in 2001, 2009, 2013, 2017, 2021, if I go, and now we're at this next one here in 2025. So what I want you to think about is every 4 years we have this report card and we're trying to figure all the numbers out and the grade out. But journey back with me just for a minute to March of 2021. In 2021 was the first time the overall, infrastructure GPA was out of a D range. Now, just think about that. Yes, we're talking about a D. And every time I think about this, in 2021, we managed to achieve a C minus, which certainly was progress. If you think overall, it was progress. And to even be more candid, I guess the way I want to say this, I don't want to be using or be too critical of infrastructure, or I guess I don't want to think that anything of a grade of a C minus is exciting. But the fact is, can you imagine our infrastructure is a C minus and we're excited about that? Do you really want to be excited about a C minus? But that's the reality. Now, jump forward to 2021 and beyond this, we saw the passing of the IIJA, which was also known as the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act. Now, this is at least the objective, if I want to kind of explain this, was that there was a number of hurdles along the way that we were supposed to look at the IIJA. And here what we have is we saw the inflation spike. We saw everything happen there. And so the funds that were allocated to the IIJA were supposed to go to a whole host of things, but they didn't go as far as we had all hoped. And what we've seen is there were an uptick in natural disasters in 2024, if you look at this. And this is kind of, I think, we all kind of need to look at a total of 27 extreme weather events caused, and this is actually very sad, 568 deaths. Now, when I went to look at the numbers, I had no idea we had that many deaths from natural disasters. This resulted in more than $182 billion in damages, including destruction of the critical infrastructure. Now, this is certainly slowing a lot of progress of what we had hoped for our critical infrastructure. On top of that, I think we have to think about we still had a failing infrastructure on top of just all these natural disasters. So today, let's take a closer look at the new 2025 ASCE infrastructure report card to get an idea of where we are today. It's exciting then today to see that for the first time ever, America's cumulative GPA, is a C, which is the highest grade it has ever, I'm telling you, ever achieved. Now, I know if you think about it, for the first time since they started reporting this in 1998, no category has ever received a D minus grade. Now, I know I'm going to start with this. Most of you are going, are you kidding me? What would you be thinking? But it's really, really great news. So I think the 2025 infrastructure report card scores 18 categories. And I think we have to look at what all these categories are. I'm going to read them off to you. It used to do 17, but they added broadband this past go around. And I think which adds another category to the mix here. So we've got aviation, we've got bridges, we've got, which I just said broadband, I'm giving to you alphabetically. We've got dams, we've got drinking water, we've got energy, we've got hazardous waste, we've got inland waterways, levees, ports, public parks, rail, roads, we've got schools, solid waste, we've got stormwater, transit, and wastewater. Now, the individual 2025 category grades range from a B, which were ports, to a D grade for stormwater and transit. Now, it's really interesting. The 9 categories scored either a D or a D plus in 2025. And then stormwater and transit are tied for a D that we saw. 8 of the category grades improved over the 2021 report, which is kind of giving you, and you can look at this report. I think it's over 200 pages long, which is really a lot to go through. And that's what we did today. I was just going through it all, trying to figure it all out. But the bottom line is we've made some really interesting progress. And I can't say that it's great, we're done. We've got so much more work to do. And perhaps most alarming, I think the report projects an investment gap, and this is the big number I think everyone needs to consider, a $3.7 trillion between now, 2024, which we just have, and 2033. And this is up from the $2.5 trillion gap identified in 2021's report card. So think about the dollars here we're talking about. There's so much more work. So while we've made some progress, there's still so much more work to be done. And we've got to focus on that in order to achieve all these things that we talked about at the start of the show that I'm talking about now. So what needs to be done next? What has to happen? And I think the ASCE makes 3 recommendations, and I'll tell you what they are right now. So here's the 3 things. Sustainable investment, what we're talking about. Prioritizing resiliency. You've got to prioritize that, because if you're not looking at a resilient future for the infrastructure, we're going to be back to where we've been all along. And I think that's the problem. And then finally, advancing policy and innovation. I think if you don't look at innovation, we're not going anywhere. We're back to where we were. We're going to say, well, we've just done the same things over and over. And every time you do something that's repeatable, we all know what that is. We're back to, just stumbling over ourselves. So, which brings me, I think, to my opinion today. And this is what I think is important. Innovation is needed more than ever before. If we don't look at innovation and we just repeat the same mistakes, then we've learned nothing from what we're trying to do with the infrastructure. We need to consider new technologies, new products, I think new materials, and even new processes. We've got so much going on. We can look at how AI can help us, but there's so many innovative things that we can apply to infrastructure. And I think that's so critical today. We need to become more efficient and we need to consider new ideas. If we're not coming together with new ideas, we're just not going to grow and make our infrastructure stronger and more resilient. Simply, we need innovation. Innovation is going to be critical for the future. And if we need to build cities and infrastructure of tomorrow, then we need to think differently. And that's what's going to be so essential for everything we do. And thinking differently simply means we need a lot of different people to come together to help us create this new, creative, innovative future. So I think when we look at this, we need to recognize the hurdles that are in front of us. There's no question about that. We've got to recognize all of that. And I think that's going to be important. We need to keep investing in our infrastructure. We can't stop. We can't say we made some investments and then we've got to ignore that, but we've got to continue to keep making all of those critical investments. And more importantly, we've got to take action now. That is perhaps the most important in everything that we do is we've got to look at the action we're doing and continue to make it. So here's my tips. I mean, we've talked about a lot of them. I think you can get it and understand it. Though more importantly, we're talking about all the things we want to do. Got to take a deep breath. Let's take a step back this week and think about and look at what the ASCE report card really means. I think we need to slow down in order to speed up. Now, you got to think about what I'm saying there because that's really, really important. And I think before we leap forward and we act, I think let's think about what we really want to accomplish because I think that's really important. We all know we need to build an infrastructure. We all know we need to build it faster. We've seen what's happening, the dams, the levees, the roads. We all know that. We all know what's going on the bridges. We all know the stormwater problems. We all get that. But we need to kind of slow down first and think about what kind of strategies are we going to implement. And I think that's important. But if we need to rethink the way we're doing things, and we need to think positively and aggressively about the next steps. I think, what if we need to take more time, maybe is the question we should be asking, about the planning phases in order to kind of speed up the construction and infrastructure objectives of everything we're doing. And I think that's the critical kind of movement we want to make with all this. And I think even perhaps more importantly, with innovation, the opportunities are endless. They really are. Because as groups and individuals come together, we're creatively thinking about the collaborative opportunities that come. And that's where new ideas come about. And that's where change comes about and a resilient future comes about. So consider the challenges in front of all of us, I think, and then think outside the box. We can't think about the same ways we've done everything. We have to be more innovative, more creative, more resilient, more sustainable in the way we're doing things, and talk to other people. Invite other people into the conversation. It's not just one way anymore. It's many ways to solve the problem for the infrastructure. Brainstorm new innovative solutions to old challenges. That's where we're going to grow and make things better. And I think I have to congratulate the ASCE once more because they continue to bring this report card out. They continue to understand and want everyone to recognize the challenges, and they want us to forge a better future. And they want to remind us it's going to take investment, dollars, people, and a lot of creative collaboration. And it's not easy to put together a report card every 4 years that makes us all look at the challenges and yet the opportunities that lie ahead. So we might be amazed with what I think can come with perhaps, I guess I want to say, and I want to wrap up with our grades and our opportunities of something we could be proud of. Because if we work really hard together, there's nothing that we can't accomplish as a society and as Americans here to improve and make our country safer, more resilient, and have a stronger infrastructure for everyone. Well, all right, I'm out of time, listeners, for this segment and as everything. So I'd love for you to share your thoughts with me on X and Connected World and continue the conversation on LinkedIn. I always love to hear your comments. Whether you agree with me or not, I'd love to know what you think. Please check out our website at connectedworld.com or our show website at thepeggysmedleyshow.com. And make sure to share and subscribe to all of our episodes. We've got this one on YouTube and, with anything that we do, we'd love to know what you think. Get others to join our conversation. We'd love that. And we want to know what you think, as I just said. So that's important. This is the Peggy Smedley Show, your voice for our connected world. And remember, with great technology comes great responsibility.